Hello, and welcome to the PhD Life Raft podcast. I'm Emma Brzezinski, and today I am talking to the wonderful Naomi Tyrell. We're talking about what you can do if you decide that academia is not for you. This comes to many people during their PhD, and we are going to talk about the different options that might be available to you, where you can seek support, and we also talk about the power of Maltesers. So I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Naomi.
Hi, Emma.
So lovely to have you here from the beautiful Devon. I'm very jealous of you being there. So today is going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to this conversation in terms of answering the question of like, what if I decide I don't want to be an academic anymore, which I think is a point that lots of PhD researchers get to. Some on a regular basis. So we're gonna think about that question today. But first of all, I'm gonna invite you, as I do with everybody, to tell us a little bit about yourself and your PhD story.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me, Emma. Really excited about having this conversation with you. So I got my PhD a long time ago. I feel very old at the moment. So I got my PhD in 2006 from the University of Wales, Swansea, and I kind of went straight through. University didn't have a gap before I did my PhD. Was fortunate enough to get University of Wales funding, which was brilliant. And I really did a PhD because I loved what I was researching, which was child and family migration. So I didn't really do a PhD because I knew I wanted to be an academic. I did a PhD because I really loved research and that particular research area. And then, was fortunate enough to get the funding that then led on to a postdoc, which was, a child migration project funded by European Commission and the first one of its kind with that project on child migration.
Amazing.
Really, really exciting time. And then I just kind of carried on in academia. I had a brief stint working for a research and evaluation company doing commercial research, but then went straight into postdoc and, life continued, got a permanent academic post. And then after my first child was born, I was like, oh, I don't think I want to stay in academia. Actually, it's not fitting with what I want out of life and career. And there was far less research involved than I'd anticipated. And I think the PhD can be an amazing period of time to really get into a research area, and it's it then becomes a bit of a privilege to still be doing research as an academic because you've got so much admin and teaching, which I love, but it was like constantly spinning plates and feeling like research was really being marginalized. So I absolutely loved my PhD time, and people who are listening who are at that point and loving it, I can absolutely understand and appreciate where you're at. People who are thinking, oh, actually, I'm not sure I want to do research, or I'm not sure I want to do research in academia because of the way academia seems to be. Then just, I guess, my tale can hopefully give you some pointers in how you can be an active researcher and post-PhD and beyond academia if that's something that you're considering.
So I love that this is a love story. I love that you fell in love with your subject and you wanted to be with it and spend time with it. And that's what the PhD was for you. And I think ideally that is what the PhD is, isn't it? It's just, and thank you for sharing that warm glow on a very cold day. But then there's also this other bit which came to you later, in terms of I'm not sure this is for me anymore. But as I say, for some people comes to them during their PhD in terms of like, oh my goodness, I've set off on this project, and maybe it started off as a love story for them in terms of I just love this thing, but now I'm really not sure. And at that point, some people think, right, well then I should give up the PhD and go and do something else. And I guess that what we've had a little chat before we started, and it's the sense of like, you don't necessarily need to give. Sometimes it's right to give up the PhD, isn't it? But you don't need to give up the PhD necessarily. And so I think your next bit of your story, which then might lead us into discussion in terms of so what if you decide then you don't really want to be an academic anymore, but you have this qualification, have this PhD. What does that mean? So I know there's an next bit of your story. So you've had your first child, and then you decide, and then things happen. So can you tell us a bit about that? And then that might lead us into this discussion of, well, then what can you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, it just became clear that academia wasn't right for me. I was supervising PhDs at this point as well. And, you had a research grant and some smaller, a big research grant and some smaller ones, and was, working in collaboration with people. And I think I realised that I love working with others. I love being a team player, and a team leader as well. And that, that quite a lot of academia is very egocentric and very you can feel very isolated. And so I decided to give up a permanent academic post, which was horrifying to some of my colleagues, but I went with my gut instinct and became a senior research fellow on a temporary contract, finishing off an ESRC grant that I'd won with a colleague at Strathclyde. And then when that contract came to an end in January 2019, I thought, you know what, I'm going to set up my own research business. I know I've got skills that have value. We'll talk about that in a moment, how we know that. And I'm going to go it alone. And gradually I've brought people into the company, and the company's grown through COVID. We now have clients not just in the UK, but in North America too. And I absolutely love what I do. And I'm doing research every single day, which is absolutely amazing. We do research, evaluation and impact assessments, and primarily for charities and social enterprises, but also for universities, funnily enough, gone full circle, and also for healthcare companies as well. So, if you're at that point thinking, has my PhD got value beyond academia? Absolutely. Can I do research outside academia? Absolutely. Can you be fulfilled and feel like you're using your knowledge, skills, and experience outside of academia? Absolutely. And I love encouraging people to know that that is absolutely possible. I speak to people on a very regular basis who do things that I do, or similar, or even very different things, but still using skills, knowledge, and or experience that they gained from their PhD. So what you are doing now, if you're kind of thinking, oh, shall I carry on? Is it worth it if I don't want to be an academic? I would say 100% yes. If you can, finish it and get through that hump, then it is absolutely worth it. And it's about matching the value of your PhD to the people who appreciate it beyond academia. And actually, increasingly, because of the way academia is going, increasingly the value of your PhD can be higher beyond academia than it is within, because of precarity, shortage of jobs, the workload issues. Your PhD can be appreciated by people beyond academia more than academic institutions, which is a bit of a sad state of affairs, isn't it? But I have found that to be the case for some people.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I think it's an odd one, isn't it? Because academia can be like a really bad kind of relationship. In terms of this, shall I leave? Shall I stay? And this sense of, oh well, maybe you don't know, and I hope you don't know. But in terms of, if you're not in a great relationship, and they're like, well, you can't leave me because you won't get anything better. Nothing better is going to be out there for you. Think of all the good times we've had. That will never happen somewhere else. And actually knowing, no, it can be better, and I can be valued more somewhere else. And actually making that step can be a really amazing, liberating, wonderful thing to do. Not for everybody, but I think to know that you have value outside can be a really empowering thing to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you're listening to this and you're struggling, there is support. I think the other thing is, we can sometimes feel in academia that we have to be able to figure out everything out on our own, or we shouldn't ask for help. But there is support available. There's, lots of different avenues for that. And, Emma can probably put that in the show notes. There's lots of support out there with LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. People have written books about getting through the PhD too, haven't they? So there is support out there. And I think probably far more support than there was back in, the early 2000s when I was doing my PhD. And if you want support for thinking about what else you can do, then similarly that is there for you. And probably your researcher development team, again, this is a growth area in universities, recognising the need to support people through their PhD. Your first port of call would be your university's researcher development team. See what workshops and events they put on to support you. But if you're struggling, then I wouldn't say, you've got to finish. Of course you've got to finish. No, actually I wouldn't say that. I'd say seek support and think about what's best for you. If you're kind of near the end and it's that final push and you're thinking, oh, how can I get through it? I will say Maltesers did help me quite a lot in that. That's how I got through it. But again, if you're at that point and thinking, oh, was this really worth it? Then from the people that I talk to and from my own experience, I would say yes, absolutely, it is worth it. It's about thinking about where it's going to be valued beyond academia. You don't have to start again. I think again there's a bit of a myth around, if I don't stay in academia, I've got to start again. I've got to retrain. I've got to spend loads of money doing something else. Again, you might want to do that, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to feel like you're starting again. You can harness the power of having the PhD and apply it to areas beyond academia. That is absolutely possible. And I see people having, stellar careers and doing amazingly well because they matched what they gained from their PhD with the organisations and employers who valued it.
Oh, this is great. This is great stuff. So I think it is that sense of clarifying in terms of what we're saying, that if you are having that moment of thinking, I'm not sure if what is next for me, there are things that you can do to kind of explore your options, and the academic route is likely to be really clear for you because it's there, you're in that environment, but the other things may not be so clear. And as you've said, Naomi, that there will be hopefully there will be support within your institution to help you start thinking about that. There will be research support, career service. But are there any other things from your journey, Naomi, that you would offer in terms of what to think about if you do decide, I don't want to be within academia anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. There was something that I found really helpful. It wasn't at the start when I left, it was a little bit later, but Holly Prescott at Birmingham has what she calls the keep, lose, add list. And you list out the things that you love about your current position, so what you're doing in your everyday work life, and you put that under keep. So what you are doing that you love and would like to keep in a future role. And then things that you really don't like, you put in a lose column. And then anything that you'd like to add, you put in an add column. So I think that can be a helpful framework to start off with thinking about like assessing what is it that I really love or don't love or would like to bring into a working role for me. And you can also think about that in broader life terms as well. I'm very much one for thinking about how our work and our life fit together so that we can live our best life. And another thing that can be really helpful is just to think about all the skills that you have gained during the process of your PhD. This might depend what phase you're at in relation to the PhD journey. But, we can sometimes just think about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And academia always encourages us to do that. It's about the next paper or the next chapter or the next conference presentation or the next bit of funding, rather than actually taking stock and evaluating what we have achieved so far. So I think it can be really helpful to kind of press pause, whatever stage you're at, and think about how far you've come. This can boost your confidence often. And also, if you list out what you've gained, what you've learned, what you've developed in that time period, you can begin to see, oh, actually, yeah, wow, that's pretty amazing. And look at all the things that I can offer a future employer that I wouldn't have been able to do a year ago or 3 years ago or whatever stage you're at. And I will guarantee you there are hugely valuable skills and experiences that you are having that are relevant to careers beyond academia. I can absolutely guarantee it because I know the sorts of things that you will have been doing during your PhD. Most people cannot do all the things that you can do. They won't be trained in all the things that you're trained in. They won't have experienced all the things you have. They don't have the knowledge either. So not only have you got the niche knowledge that you have gained during your PhD, you also have surrounding that skills and experiences that are hugely valuable beyond academia. And most people don't offer that kind of package. So you have huge value to an employer beyond academia because you're like a unique product. Not everyone can do what you can do. And within academia, because it feels familiar, it might feel like you're never good enough. You extract yourself from that university context. And I can guarantee you there will be employers who will want you because you offer so much to their organisation.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. And you know this, Naomi, because you work with people and help them to do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done it myself. I did it post-PhD. As I said, I had that time in commercial research, which really kind of embedded in me and thinking about my value. But even then, when I had my decision that academia wasn't right for me, and I still had a wobble, I wrote on LinkedIn the other day, like, oh my gosh, what else can I do? And, 5 years later, now I'm like, why did I ever think that? It's like I'm only still using like a subset of my skills and experience, even though I'm running my own businesses, because we learn so much in academia. And we forget actually that a PhD is a rare commodity. Most people have not got and cannot get a PhD. It's a rare commodity. And that does not only have value in academia. I'll say it again, it's hugely valuable beyond academia, but academia doesn't encourage us to think this way. Things are changing, a lot more support for ALTAC careers linked in with the research and development framework and commitments universities have made to ALTAC career development. ALTAC is like the shorthand for alternative to academic. So it has shifted and it has changed, but I still don't think that there's enough support, and I still don't think that we have these conversations often enough. And I know it to be true because I've done it myself. And I help others to do it. And, I see people on social media all the time, and watching their journey is just so inspiring. So if you're not following anyone who's outside of academia and you're thinking that you might want to leave academia, or that you might have to because of the limited number of academic jobs in your research area, just go and follow people on X, LinkedIn increasingly because of what's happening with X, Facebook as well in groups, and just learn from their stories because it's so inspiring. And there are so many of us. The majority of people with PhDs work outside of academia. Like, how incredible is that? That is a ready-made network for you for exploring your alt-ac options.
Oh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And I think the energy, which I just, it's coming over the airwaves.
I love talking about this.
No. And I think this sense of, exactly, and this kind of sense of all that is outside of academia, because I think that this sense of you can still be a passionate researcher, you can still have all that is beyond that is still absolutely possible for you. Because I think
absolutely.
I think, again, it's that sense of if you are in that place of like, I don't think this is for me anymore, it can be so disorientating because all that, this is what I do research, this is what I do. Now what? Is my life going to fall apart? And actually, no, like you say, there's life beyond, and there are lots of actually fantastic options potentially for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've fallen out of love with research, you've got options. If you're absolutely in love with research, you've got options. As I said, I do more research now than I did when I was an academic. And also increasingly, and I think this is really interesting for people to consider, because again, there is this myth that it's like a cliff edge. You decide to leave, that's it, there's no going back. Yeah. That has changed definitely in the UK in the last 5 years. That is not the case anymore for a lot of research areas. So some, yes, that will be the case, but for a lot, actually, that has changed. And if you look at who's being employed in universities in the upper echelons, you'll see that a lot of them have alt-ac experience because universities need that knowledge and skill set back in at the top because of the corporatisation of universities in the UK. So the idea that you leave, that's it, and it's over, increasingly is not true.
This is such an important thing to say. And exactly that if you go off and get industry experience, you may be actually more valuable coming back.
Yeah. And then it becomes, actually, do I want to go back to academia?
Yeah.
And again, increasingly people are like, no, I'm actually paid for the hours that I do when I work in industry. Why on earth would I go back and do loads of free labour? Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous. And we said that you do this kind of work, and we'll put all the links in the show notes so that people are able to sort of find out more. And because you can help people to connect into networks and all of that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my business, and then I also do offer help, free and paid for help for people. But I set up a Facebook group called Old Tack Careers in COVID because I saw that actually there was a lot of discussion, and I think COVID was a really difficult time for a lot of people. And that isolation increased, and people thinking, what else can I do? And I was like, there's loads you can do. Let's kind of get together and have a Facebook group where we can encourage each other, support each other, share jobs, share experiences. And that's what it's about. We've got over 2,000 members now. So yeah, lots of free support available. And I just love talking on podcasts and with people in groups about this, because it's about dispelling the myths, Emma. There's still lots of myths about what an academic career was like, and then people realize, oh, it's not actually what I thought it was going to be like, and then they feel stuck. And I'm all about helping people to become unstuck like I did, and for them to know that there's absolutely ways forward for them if academia is not right for them. Academia is brilliant for some people. I'm not one of those people who bashes it all the time. There's definitely things wrong with it, but it can work for some people, and that's brilliant. If it works for you, amazing. I don't want to detract from that. Obviously there are really hardworking people doing amazing work in universities. But if it doesn't work for you, you're not stuck.
I love this. And I think it is that sense, again, of like you say, dispelling the myths, and also this sense of removing the isolation, because I think people then can go, oh, it's just me feeling like this. And it can also feel as a kind of weird kind of taboo. It feels like it's naughty, like I'm doing, going against things. And actually, that isn't the case. First of all, you're very clearly not on your own.
Yeah,
Lots
absolutely.
of other people are on this journey. And it's about exploring options. There's a whole big world out there. And I think this sense of sharing your knowledge, and as you said at the beginning, in terms of a place where it's appreciated, where it can do what you want it to do, where you can make a change, that's really, really important.
Yeah, and often that is what brings us into research, isn't it? It's that wanting to make a difference. And you can do that beyond academia. Academia is not the be all and end all.
Yeah. Oh, I'm aware of time. So I'm going to ask, as I do, very, it's a ridiculous question, I know, but out of all we've talked about, is there a top tip for people to take away?
I do have a top tip because I thought ahead.
Yes.
Because it's quite hard for me to then stuff into one, but I did do it for you, which is it's never too early to start planning the stage after the PhD. And whether that is, whether you're sure that you want to stay in academia or not, I would just encourage you to think more broadly about your skills, knowledge and experience, where it could be valued and where you would feel happiest and most fulfilled. So if you're kind of feeling like you're on the hamster wheel, maybe spend a bit of time considering where else you might like to go with the PhD. And if you're thinking academia is definitely for me, sadly, we know that it doesn't always work out for people. So again, it's never too early. Just think, okay, what else could I do? I might not want to pursue that right now, but rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, there's nothing else I can do, everybody at whatever stage of the PhD they're at can think, okay, I know I've got options. So bring people into your network or join some of the groups or follow people on social media who could just kind of broaden your horizons about the possibilities for you, so that you don't feel stuck if that time comes, or so that you think, actually, I've got options here. If I feel like this isn't right for me anymore, I know that there are other avenues that I can pursue.
We love options. We love options. Thank you so much, Naomi, for all of that.
Lovely to speak with you, Emma, and get the word out there that there's life beyond academia.
Thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you all for listening.